Hey everyone, this is Brian Lesh back here with Sherry, like the wine. And this is part two of our interview. So, Sherry, you wanted to touch on something about fitness.
Right, we were talking about how INTJs are not considered athletic, or we not really into anything involving physical fitness.
Right. We
And
don't have a really good relationship with sensing things or feeling things.
right, or like yes, exactly. Like I wouldn't say that I'm the kind of person that does well on a team sport. I don't do well with working with other people on some athletic endeavor. I've always been I always have geared towards things that were a singular activity for physical fitness. With that said, I did do 14 years of ballet training, very intensive ballet training.
Really?
But there again, that was something very specific to my body. It wasn't competitive.
Okay.
It was an artistic form. I would say it was very physical, but not athletic. I didn't have to catch any balls. I didn't have to hit any balls. I didn't have to play volleyball. It was different because there again, it was a very fine technique endeavor. So it was very, very high in physical fitness to be in ballet, but it was about technique. It was about controlling my body, about controlling my mind, about control. And the same is for me with weightlifting. I've always been into weightlifting, I think since I was 19.
Huh. Okay.
And to me, that's a lot about technique. It's a lot about producing something like you're producing more strength, or you're changing your body, or there's something that you're almost like an experiment with my body all the time. It's like, well, if I do this and these types of workouts together, what will come of it? Even with like running, I don't consider myself a runner, but I do like to run. I do that as my cardio, but my point in running is to become more cardiovascularly fit. So it's not about I gotta go lose weight, or I think I'm fat or something like that. It's more a means to an end. Like
Hmm.
I can't get my heart in shape if I don't run. So I wonder if it's kind of more like that with a lot of INTJs. I'm just kind of speculating that we do like to be into physical fitness endeavors if there is something to come of it that isn't just I need to lose weight. I don't think losing weight is a motivating factor for us
Hmm.
unless it's just the start. It just gets us started, and then we realize when we get into it, "Oh, this is, like, really awesome. I really like the way this makes me feel. I like the way this makes me, just want to keep going with it and being better and better."
Well, I have a couple of insights on that.
Mhm,
Um, a while ago, I did a blog entry. Excuse me. I did a blog entry about the hobbies of INTJs. One of the things I covered was fitness and weight training.
mhm.
Got a response from a dude, another INTJ, who said that he was into weightlifting, that he was into what do they call it, strength training. He was a weightlifter. He was into the whole.
Was it CrossFit?
Possibly. I no, I don't think
Or
that's the
I
term.
think, like
Sorry. Jeez. Um, but he was like a hobbyist weightlifter. Um,
mhm,
Another INTJ that I met through my Instagram page, another woman, she originally got into fitness because her husband, who's an ENTJ, told her that she was starting to get a little flabby, that she was starting to lose her shape a little bit. So that's how she got
yeah,
into it. But then I think
yeah,
she
yeah,
pursued fitness out of a passion for it.
yeah, yeah,
I originally I can't really say I'm into fitness currently, but I mean, I do have three kettlebells and two dumbbells. And the dumbbells are 50 pounds, and the kettlebells are like 25 and 35 pounds. Uh, but I originally got into it because, yes, I had gained some considerable weight originally. I do need to get back into it because like when I originally got into it, I did it to lose weight, and I made good progress. I went from 292 pounds to 255, I think. I know that's a lot because, to put it in a little bit of perspective, I am 6'5". So
Okay. Yeah.
yeah. But then recently, last year, at the start of last year, um, well, I lost all that weight. I then fell into a black depression, which was financially related, gained it all back,
Mhm.
and then some.
Yeah.
I my final weight before I finally like had enough of everything was 307. Yeah, so tried to do diet and exercising again to lose it. Over the course of 4 months, I lost 10 pounds. Uh
Right.
yeah, don't know what happened there, but I turned to intermittent fasting as a result. Um
Mhm.
and then I ended up losing like close to 60 pounds over the course of about 6 months or so. Um
Okay. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I am start
Intermittent fasting, by the way, is awesome.
yeah,
That works so well for everyone. And I'm not one of those proponents of any kind of diets like keto or whatever. You just do what worked for you.
yeah.
But intermittent fasting to me is something that anybody and everybody can do.
Yeah,
And it's
well,
healthy for everyone. But
mhm. Yeah, I weighed myself today before we started the interview, and I currently weigh 246. So,
wow.
yeah,
Yeah. Great.
yeah, I still have
Do
some weight to
you
go. I'm
okay.
sorry. Yeah, my goal weight
Do you think
is
you're in your weight range?
no, I still have 26 pounds to go until I
Okay.
reach the final destination. So yeah, that's one of the reasons
Yeah.
why I say I need to get back into the fitness aspect of it.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
as well as one of my goals is to start trying to cut out, not entirely, but starting to cut back on sugar as well as artificial sweeteners.
Yeah. I, I've that's my next goal too. Is to cut out the sugar. That's
Yeah.
gotten a little out of hand. It's almost like I have this determined, like, I can't go past this weight, or I can't go past this much sugar in a day, or I have these like little rules I have for myself. And I've definitely gone way past my what I consider acceptable limit for the amount of sugar I can have in a day or things like that.
Hmm.
So, and then I also don't like the idea or the feeling of I'm eating bad and then I put on weight that's going to be so hard to get back off again. I mean, I'm old, not a lot older than you, but I'm old enough that that game got really old for me in my 30s, where playing that game of, oh, I could just take that weight off. Well, now it's not going to work like that for me anymore to
Yeah.
get that weight off. But at the same time, I'm really trying hard not to focus on my weight anymore. Just because now I've gotten into a different form of weight training. I'm probably going to put on weight. So
Mm.
now it's more about how strong am I? How far can I run? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there's
But
almost like a little game to it, right? Like the game kind of keeps you going. I wouldn't say I'm so used to the routine of working out on a regular basis that I don't necessarily need a goal, but definitely having a goal this year has been really motivating for me to progress into something else.
yeah. Yeah.
Because this year I signed up for the tactical games, which I'll be honest with you, I'm terrified because I'm not a competitive person. So I'm terrified for a lot of reasons, and one of them is that I need to get stronger, a lot stronger. And at 40, almost 44 years old, that's not a small feat for me.
What are the tactical games? I've never heard of them.
Uh, yeah, the tactical games, let me think how to explain them. It's kind of like it's like weightlifting, maybe a little bit of Spartan race kind of things um added in, and then it's firearms. So
Hmm.
basically the point of it is to simulate battle, to simulate the stress of a battle
Oh, okay.
without obviously being in a battle. You're not fighting anybody or anything like that. You're just the weight type of thing is like, what if you had to carry your wounded friend off the battlefield or something like that? So there's a lot of weight, having to be able to lift a lot of weight. You have to be able to run so far with, and then all that with your gear on you. So I have to wear a 12-pound plate carrier. I'm going to have my rifle on me. I'm going to have all my ammo on me, a sidearm. So there's all that weight on your body and then having to run with it. If they ask you to run, that's the thing too. When you get there for that weekend for those games, you don't really know what they're going to make you do. So you have
Okay.
to be prepared with being able to shoot distance with your rifle. Um, there's a lot involved with your ability with your firearms, and then also with your physical fitness. And then some of it's kind of just, it's supposed to have been for civilians. Some of the more police officers and retired military have kind of gotten into it, which almost feels a little unfair to me because they've had all that training and I haven't.
Hmm.
But at the very least, it's a way you can kind of prove to yourself how good or bad you are at those two things.
Yeah. I like the
Yeah.
sound of it. I might look into
Yeah.
that. But
It's
yeah,
really, it is super cool. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. But to
I
your
just think that the weight restricts, I think the amount of weight I need to lift as a woman, I think is a bit too much
mm,
in comparison to what they expect from the men. So the men, they have divisions of like intermediate, elite, and I think they do tactical. There's 3 divisions, but then they have age divisions with the men. The women, there's no age division. So I could be competing with a bunch of 20-year-olds who are into CrossFit.
well, maybe the reason why they don't have any age divisions is because there aren't as many women into it.
Maybe.
So yeah, so
Yeah.
that's how they justify it, maybe.
Yeah. Anyway.
But yeah, to your original point, yeah, I got into fitness as a need. Um, but yeah, it is actually quite interesting seeing what my body can do,
Mhm.
and wanting to see what more it can do. One of the things I want to do this year is I want to be able to learn how to do a backflip. Like, I think that'd be really cool. Yeah, as well as maybe
As
learn a,
you as you can imagine, is not easy.
yeah,
It's
well,
really not easy.
yeah,
It's a lot of back mobility. You have to take a lot of pressure on your shoulders to be able to do that.
hmm,
Um,
okay,
yeah, it's about back and shoulders right there. Your legs can handle that, of course. It's just getting that yeah, back mobility.
okay,
Yeah. It's kind of like I don't like doing any kind of things where I'm in a handstand, where I have all the weight of my body on my shoulders or my arm and shoulder joints like that.
okay,
So you will never see me doing a headstand or doing cartwheels anymore. I can't do cartwheels anymore. Really. I mean, I could do it if I had to save my life, but um, I prefer not to do any cartwheeling
huh,
because of that weird pressure it puts on my shoulders. Anyway,
interesting. All
but
right,
yeah, but it just that's what we kind of need as INTJs. We need something to. It's not. I don't want to call it a goal, but we need to work to make our bodies do what we want it to do, to have that control over ourselves. And then having that kind of end goal of I want to, let's see, like for me, I need to be able to carry 100 pounds on one hand and 100 pounds on another hand.
hmm.
So right now I've gotten to the point where I can lift for a few seconds, 90 pounds on each side.
What sort of lift are you using when you do that?
Well, what am I lifting?
Well, what is the technique? What is the lift you're using? Like, is it a
Oh, well,
deadlift
at the
or
moment, yeah, so it's kind of like doing a farmer's walk. If my end goal is
okay,
to be able to farmer's walk with, and when I say 100 pounds, that's including the bar. So 245 plates on either side with the bar. I need to be able to lift that and walk with it. Right now I'm just at the point where I can just lift that
okay,
off the ground. Yeah. And then but yeah, there's a little bit of an experiment involved there. This is the first time I've had to actually make it happen rather than it being just a whimsical experiment on my part.
mm,
Like I've always liked experimenting with different supplements and see how they work and things like that. But there was really no end goal. Now I
okay.
actually have an end goal for it. Yeah. Anyway,
So you want to
I
be
think
able
that
to lift 200 pounds altogether.
yeah, I'd be able to walk with it.
Okay.
So that's a little more than I think I have to lift, but I've been looking at a lot of what other women are doing in the tactical games, specifically at the elite level, and I see a lot of them doing that. And those women they got a lot of muscle on them. I'm feeling a little inadequate at the moment. I'm not exactly an easy gainer of muscle already, and then being a woman on top of that, but seeing these other women lift that amount of weight and walk with it just kind of it shocks me. So we'll see. We'll see if I can do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to do it, but I want to be prepared. And that's another thing too, I think is very INTJ. I think we like to be prepared for anything and everything.
Yes.
And I get a lot of existential crises over not being realizing like, oh, I don't know if I can live out in the wilderness. I don't know if I'm good enough at hunting. I don't know if I'm can build a fire. I don't that like I that keeps me awake at night sometimes.
Yeah. I get that. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. Like if I had that knowledge already, I'd be set. I'd be chill. But having to get the knowledge of what I want to know how to do. I wanted to ask you too about learning to ride a motorcycle. Did you enjoy the process of learning, or did you just want to be like, I want to be excellent at this right away?
Um, well, it's an interesting question, really. Uh, I definitely enjoyed the class. Um,
Hmm.
I'm one of those people, and I'm not sure if this is an INTJ thing or not, but I'm one of those people where I can generally do most things with, I don't want to say almost perfectly, but I can do most things pretty good as soon as I see them or as soon as I'm told how to do them, like the first time
Hmm.
around. Um,
Yeah.
so I mean, there wasn't much in the motorcycle class that challenged me. I mean, certainly doing the U-turn was challenging, especially
Hmm.
because probably most motorcyclists don't actually do a U-turn like that. If they have to, they probably do put their feet down and back up, like
Yeah.
like most people would,
Right.
because why wouldn't you? Um,
Right. Yeah.
but I mean, yeah, I enjoyed the process of learning, but I was decently good at it from the beginning, not to get discouraged. Some of the instructors, instructions was sometimes conflicting and hard to understand occasionally. Um, but generally, I actually took the intro course twice. Not because I failed it the first time, just because it had been, the first time I took it was in October of 2020.
Hmm.
And I took it through my local Harley Davidson dealership, which is a very different experience from what I had when I took it in June of 2021, which was through a local community college, through their program.
Hmm.
So the Harley Davidson experience was like 4 days long, whereas the community college program was only 2.5 days long. The bikes were different, at the at in I rode a Harley Davidson Street 500, whereas at the community college one, I rode a Suzuki TU 250R, I think it's called. Um, so, 500cc motorcycle versus a 250cc motorcycle. And Harley Davidson, um, so one was a much better fit, number one, but
Hmm.
the Harley Davidson also takes better care of their bikes. They put bar end protectors on them, they put fender protectors on them, engine guards. Whereas the bike I had for the community college course was bent and dented in all sorts of ways. I making tight right turns was very uncomfortable because the handlebars on the right side were bent in. So because I'm so
Right.
big and the bike is so small, going to
Hmm.
do a right turn, I would end up pinching my knee in between the handlebar and the tank, which was an issue I didn't have when I did it at Harley Davidson.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, and there again, you said you're 6'5".
yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, I can imagine that was not a good fit at all. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, taking the course at Harley Davidson, I could keep my knees up against the tank, not have to
Yeah.
worry about not have to worry about where the handlebars were taking it at the community college, I had to swing my leg out and counterbalance accordingly anytime I had to make a real tight turn, regardless of either direction. But
Mhm.
had to be especially aware of it on the right hand side.
Yeah.
Yeah, but getting off topic, but yeah, your to your original question. Yeah, I enjoyed learning it. I continue to enjoy learning it, but it does
Mhm.
definitely help that, I seem to have some natural ability or aptitude for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, mhm. I, on the other hand, did not, when I learned to drive and to ride motorcycle.
Really?
For some reason, it just did not compute with me, and that was it was agonizing. It was agonizing to me. Now, of course, I learned to drive a car on a stick shift, and I still drive stick shift. I don't drive anything else. I think my husband finds it amusing that if you put me in an automatic car and ask me to drive it, I'll be like, "Where what do I gotta do?" Where's, like, I would have to look at where the park and the drive and the whatever else they've got. I don't know. It's very confusing to me. So, yeah, I stick with my stick shift, but just because that's easier to me, but in the process of learning it, it was so painful to learn. But I am one of those people though that when I get it and I'm excellent at it. Now, I'm not currently riding motorcycle because I had a weird experience a few years ago and I stopped, but I do want to get back into it. Um, Hopefully this year, this fall, I'm going to take another course. So,
Okay.
take another course here. Yeah. Just because I need a refresher, and it's definitely something I kind of have a sense that I did not, the technique of it didn't stick with me.
Okay.
Some things come back to you like muscle memory and such, but
Yeah.
I think that one it won't. But yeah, it was hard for me to learn how to ride a motorcycle too. There was
Okay.
something counterintuitive about it to me. So, but I know what you mean that it's we do pick up on learning how to do things very quickly and very easily. And if we don't, it's like, ugh,
Yeah.
frustrating. Extra
Hmm.
frustrating. I don't always enjoy the process of learning like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Learning to do something physical. Have you ever done martial arts?
Oh yeah. I did
Okay.
karate as a kid, and
Mhm.
I for a brief period of time, most recently when I was exercising, I started doing like boxing type exercises, or
Mhm.
boxing, drills.
Yeah. Yeah. Shadow boxing and such.
Hmm.
Yeah. That was another strange experience for me doing martial arts. I did for about a year and a half, and the reasons for why I stopped is a long, long story. Um, there was an element of it that I picked up on very, very quickly, and others where I couldn't mesh together the idea of doing katas and defense maneuvers, and then adding it to actual sparring. The two always seem so separate to me, and having to I think that's where maybe being an INTJ was hard for me to be physical or be athletic, was that I couldn't use my normal pattern of thinking to spar and be good at sparring using the methods they were teaching me.
Mm.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Because when I would
Well.
get into sparring, it was like fight or flight, and I would just
Hmm.
go with whatever I knew inside myself to have used for my whole life, not what they taught me.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know what you mean. I didn't realize that the way you described it, but I
Mhm.
definitely know what you mean. Um, yeah, the katas or the forms are like, I think I heard somewhere that that's only a grading element for American martial arts for the belt system, and the
Yeah,
belt
kinda.
system was created. I mean, it's inspired by the fact that in Japan, when students were learning the martial arts originally, they were given a white belt. and
Mhm.
but it didn't show that they were a beginner. It was just a white belt, but it was the only belt they ever had. And so they would keep
Yeah.
training and training and training, and it would just get dingier and dingier and dingier. And the darker it was, that showed how long they'd been training.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. Eventually it would become black. Yeah.
right, yeah. And that was
Yeah.
supposed to
Yeah.
be the
Yeah.
mark of the master. And that's, so that's how we got the
Right.
colored belt system here in the States. Um,
Did
but
that agree with you? I'll tell you personally, for me, I hated that. I hated that. For that mess with my head. I hated the belts. It didn't matter to me being tested. I was there to learn. I
mm,
was there to learn how to defend myself. I was there to learn an art. And then I got really frustrated that having to do this testing to get a belt, I don't know, I didn't like that. It didn't sit with me at all.
how old were
It
you when
got in the
you,
way of it got in the way of my ability to progress with them
how
because
old
like,
were
"Oh,
you
well,
when
you."
you took your courses,
Oh,
when you studied?
I was like, this was going on 2 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So,
So I was older. I was older, and that was part of the reasons why I stopped because I was getting injured. There was no concern for my safety when most of the people in the class were men, young men. I do have a neck I don't really want broken, so you can only hit me in the head so many times when I'm sparring, you know? It was things like that. I was told that my martial arts experience was kind of unusual, so, I don't wanna I don't
mm,
wanna put it down or anything like that. There were definitely elements of it that didn't sit with me in the belt. The belts and the testing didn't. That got in the way to me. And then I really wanted to do Krav Maga. That was actually what I wanted to do, but it was nothing local.
mm,
And I heard they're starting to do the same thing where they have belts and they have testing, and I was like, that ruins it for me.
yeah,
Like, I don't need that. I don't need that to be motivated.
yeah, okay. So my experience is very different. Like I said, I was a kid. I was fourth, fifth, and seventh grade when I did karate.
Yeah.
So I thought about the grading and the testing in a very similar way to schooling. So I didn't
Yeah.
have that idea or that understanding
Mhm.
up until like a few years ago, where I was like, I would really like to get back into martial arts, but I don't want to deal with belts because it's ridiculous. That's
Right.
it's
Yeah.
not how it's done in the streets. I want to learn
Right.
I want to learn self-defense, and I want to be efficient at it. So, yeah, so if I
Right.
ever
Because I really liked because the strategy of it is really fascinating. There were elements of it that just really appealed to me a lot. I loved learning about that strategy. I loved learning about doing the manipulation of your enemy or something, or the person you're fighting, manipulating them to do what you need them to do so you can throw them off.
Mhm,
Or that was fascinating. I mean, just the jujitsu part of it or the Brazilian jiu-jitsu part of it was really interesting. But then when it came down to the actual physical practice of it, it was just injury after injury.
yeah, huh,
But yeah, yeah, but I really liked that element of it, that it if I would think that if I'm in a self-defense situation and that person is basically in my space, I don't wanna have to use my firearm. I wanna be able to physically defend myself, and at the same time be able to strike where I'm not hurting myself. So what I did like about the martial arts I was in is that it wasn't just punching strikes. Obviously that's part of it, but there were other kinds of strikes you could use with your body. It's Krav Maga is the same way, where you use your forearm or something else that you're not going to be breaking your wrist, essentially. So yeah, I liked that having that skill, and I showed a good aptitude for knife fighting right off the bat. And it was like, well, you have to be belt color, whatever, by the time you can do knife fighting. I'm like, well, teach me now. Like, why do I'm the one paying here. Why do I have to wait for that?
mhm,
Especially when I had gone through at least a year of them instilling in you that you have to progress to certain mental levels before you can go on to more things. But I don't know. I just didn't it was too much control of them controlling my education, I guess.
yeah,
So yeah, it was like school.
yeah. Yeah, I definitely know what you
Mhm.
mean. When I was looking to get back into it, I did find a gym near where I live. I didn't go to any of the classes, but they specialized in like mixed martial arts. So you could take a boxing class, you could
Mhm.
take a kickboxing class, you could take a Brazilian jiu-jitsu class, or you could take a
Yeah.
basic mixed martial arts class. Um,
Yeah.
and it was essentially a gym. So if I were to like get back into martial arts heavily, that's probably where I would go because I don't want to deal with belts
Yeah,
either
I was
or
about to say
grading.
that's probably yeah, that's definitely the most ideal because that's more of a sport. I think it's more ideal that way actually, yeah.
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 Hey everyone, Brian Lesh here. I just wanted to take a moment to tell you all about my t-shirts as well as my books. My t-shirt business is called Transcendent Tees, and it's all about making inspirational t-shirts or t-shirts with inspirational messages. You can check it out at transcendenttees.store. I have a lot of designs to choose from, and they're not just restricted to t-shirts. I also have a lot of posters and stickers, and there are a couple designs that are only posters or stickers. Anyway, as far as my books go, I currently have 3 books that are self-published. They're all available on Amazon. Count them up. 1, 2, 3. They are Tales of Romance, Unlikely Lovers, which is a romance anthology, Tales of Horror, Macabre Monsters of Michigan, which is a horror anthology, and then Timeless, Fairy Tales for the Ages, which is a fairy tale anthology. All 3 titles are available in ebook, paperback, and hardcover format. You can find them at the link below.
What were you gonna what was the next thing you were gonna ask me about? Was it about my home life you said?
Yeah. So I know that you're married and that you have a son, right?
Yes, yep. I've been
Okay.
married since I was 20.
Wow. Okay.
Mhm.
You got,
Yeah.
well,
You
yeah,
got me young. I always like to say that.
yeah. But you said that your husband is an ENTP and that your son is an
Mhm.
ENFP?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
let's talk about that a little bit. What So you've been married since you were 20, you're almost 44, so almost 24 years.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
what's it like dealing with your husband? Because I have a friend who's an ENTP, male friend ENTP, and at least I
Yeah.
think he's an ENTP. And in person, I generally enjoy his company and he's fun to be around. Through text, he can sometimes be annoying. And then I know a female ENTP, and I want to choke the life out of her sometimes. So,
I don't know if I know any female ENTPs. I haven't met any, and I'm kind of obsessed with ENTPs. It's probably because I'm married to one. They just really jive well with me. They have the same kind of humor. I get their humor, and I think a lot of people don't like ENTPs because they have a very strange sense of humor,
hmm,
and it's not the same as an INTP. Um, I think when you mix in that extroverted versus so in comparison to like an INTP, I think there's just such a world of difference between the two because of the extroversion. They're very charming. Um, they're unusually sentimental, but they're not. They don't have like they have the same kind of feeling component as I think INTJs do.
hmm,
Also, huge on debating. Their way of working through ideas is exactly the same way that INTJs do it.
hmm,
But they're a little more aggressive about their debating skills than maybe an INTJ would be, because most people wouldn't like me if I was like ENTP level of debating all the time. They're always trying to stir pots. Um, they're kind of fun to watch at a party if you're not their victim. If you're not the one getting your pot stirred, it's kind of fun to watch them like go after other people. I think they like to find people's limits and boundaries. And if someone doesn't know what is happening in their conversation with the ENTP, they can be very I don't even actually know what the word is. It's sort of a strange mix of they're very charming with being very disarming as well.
hmm.
And they can make people very uncomfortable, but also because they're charming, you're like, okay, I can maybe work with this. I wouldn't say they're easy. They're not easy people to live with at all.
Hmm. Okay.
I would imagine they probably have the same. relationship issues that INTJs probably do.
Like, would you say they like things a certain way and they
Yes.
sometimes just get fed up with people?
Yeah, they don't like explaining themselves.
Mm,
So it's their way or the highway.
okay.
And thankfully, INTPs are extremely intelligent. I don't think they get enough credit for how brilliant they are. They can, I mean, like my husband in particular is ADD, and my son has ADHD, which is an
Okay.
interesting dynamic, by the way. And I think a lot of I know we were going to talk about the comparison of astrology with Myers-Briggs,
Yeah.
but I also have this theory that a lot of people with ADD or ADHD are probably perceivers. So anyway,
Mm.
just a side note. I'm sorry, where was I going with my husband's ENTP-ness? That wait a minute, where was I? I'm sorry. Brain fart.
Talking about how they're not very easy people to live with, ENTPs.
Right, yeah. Yeah. So it's their way or the highway. They are really smart. So most of their way is correct. They do like things to they're not much about order and like neatness in their life. They're not like that at all. My husband's a slob. I mean, stuff's everywhere. If it's not in his line of sight, it doesn't exist. So everything is out. There's a lot of stuff. They're sentimental, so they hold on to everything they've ever owned. Things like that. I would say too, my husband's a very classic ENTP. I've
Mm.
talked with other ENTPs before. I really kind of studied up on them. I will say Myers-Briggs was really helpful for me to understand ENTPs. If I didn't have Myers-Briggs, I think he and I would be in really bad sorts. And I
Mm.
really mean that because there are elements that once I could see where his cognitive thinking was getting him where he was, or the things he said, it made much more sense to me why he was saying the things that he says, because he is very direct. There's no niceness or feeling in the way he says things to me, and then I'm always like, what do you really mean? Like I always had this sense like he has an alternative motive, but he really
Mm.
doesn't. I think that's probably more where they catch people off guard, is you always get this feeling like they've got something planned and they're out to get you. But they're not. They're not at all. They'll tell you if they are. They're very honest about it.
Kind of like the
Anyway,
Joker in a way.
yeah. I know like a really classic ENTP is Iron Man.
Really?
His name, yeah, he's Iron Man. Obviously from the comic books, from the movies. He's an ENTP type. And I'm totally blanking on all the other ones. I don't know why. I can't think of any other ones, but just as a kind of a side note, have you noticed that a lot of the characters you like in books, movies, comic books, you kind of find out when you really look into their personality, you're like, I bet those are INTJ types. Well, I've noticed with my husband, a lot of the characters he likes from movies, and he really kind of like will watch a movie over and over again because he likes this character. They're ENTP types. Oh, I
Mm.
think another one is the raccoon in
Fantastic. No, not
it's
Guardians of the Galaxy.
yeah, it's Guardians of the Galaxy.
Okay.
And his name is escaping me, of course, because I can't remember the names of anything. Yeah, why can't I? It's like right on the tip of my brain right now what the name of his character is. But anyway, he's an ENTP kind of type.
Okay.
Anyway, I think I know a lot more ESTPs, and it's interesting to see the difference between the ESTP and the ENTP, because I think I also speculate just on my personal observation that intuitives have this sort of extra control over themselves that I don't see with sensors. And I'm thinking about that because of the difference between like an ESTP and ENTP. Like the ENTPs I know, they're just a little bit more tempered. I'm trying to think of a good adjective for their demeanor is a little bit more controlled,
Okay.
I would say.
would you say
not
that there,
impulsivity or something like that, but there's something a bit more, um, not mannered isn't a good word, but just more,
balanced, maybe
maybe there's
a little more controlled, focused?
I would say controlled, maybe a little bit more of an intense focus to their demeanor. I think I'm talking more about their demeanor overall, like if they're at a party, they may have some similar things that they do in the party, but the ENTP will be more, mm,
Decisive, purposeful.
yeah, yeah, I'm totally blanking on an adjective for it other than just more controlled, more more selective in what they're going to say or do, I guess.
Okay.
Um, I don't know if that holds true with like the difference between an ISTJ or an INTJ, but I definitely can figure out whether someone is a sensor or an intuitive if I just vibe with them right away.
Hmm.
Some people you just naturally fall in line with them when you're like at a group or a party, perfect stranger, but something about them, you just kind of fall in with them so easily.
Hmm.
Whereas a sensor, you kind of have to work a little bit at it. Like,
Yeah.
you could be good friends, but you'll never be more than really good friends, I think. I don't know.
Interesting.
What's
Okay.
your experience with that?
So to be completely honest, I'm kind of bad at typing other people. Um, like I do think about whether or not people are sensors. I think about the cognitive functions. I try to go through all that, try to
Mhm.
figure out what a person is, but the what stands out the most to me though when I'm dealing with people is introverted versus extroverted. That's what gets me a lot of the times. Um, and generally I do jive better with other fellow introverts. Um, although that can be a hurdle to get across because if you're both introverted, you're not it's kind of a game to see who's going to be the first one to break the silence. Um,
Yeah.
because introverts are kind of like, silence, who cares?
Hmm.
You don't want to talk, that's fine with me. So yeah,
But then you both have to be ready to talk, right?
yeah,
At the same time. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
or you have to find something to talk about. Like for instance, I
Mhm.
noticed that the foreman at my workplace is a lot more introverted. Um, there was one day he was cracking jokes about something. Um, and I kind of had to step back for a moment because it was so kind of strange to hear him crack jokes. Um,
Mhm.
and then when he found out that I was an indie author, he admitted to being a big reader, which I didn't know about. And suddenly
Mhm.
we had a we had a connection, something that we could like bond over, and that
Yeah.
so occasionally when I see him at work now, he'll start talking about books or he'll start talking to me about my writing. Just kind of out of the blue, which is not an experience I had prior to us having that conversation.
Right. At some point, you both have to like let up what your interests are,
Yeah.
or kind of open up at one point. Yeah, that's definitely true. The extroverts do make that a little bit easier, but they're exhausting.
Yeah.
They're terribly exhausting people. They just don't know when to say when sometimes, and
Hmm.
I can literally feel my social meter just draining, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
like robot.
Yeah. I've got a I've
Okay,
got
I
a
gotta go home now. You sucked it out of me.
yeah, I've got a buddy who's an ESTJ, and
Mhm.
dealing with him on my own, he's fine, but get him around other people and he can drive me a little nuts. Um, but then I've got a friend who's an INFP,
Mhm.
and she's very easy to talk to, very easy to get along with. But due to that any function, she sometimes says something a little haywire or off the wall, um, that you don't really see coming. it's, I had to explain to her one day cognitive functions, and I was trying to explain to her extroverted intuition, and she's like, "Oh, is that the reason why I sometimes act like I have ADD?" And I'm like, "Yeah."
Right. Yeah. INFPs are awesome. I had a really good friend in Pennsylvania, INFP, and she's God, the weird shit we would talk about. But there was no boundaries. I feel like with the perceivers, like the intuitive perceivers, perhaps they just have no boundaries in terms of conversation, and I love that about them. They'll put out all these wacky ideas, and then as an INTJ, I'm like, okay, how can I pare this down to like a reasonable idea? Like something that actually works. But in the meantime, I love that imagination from them because I think that most people don't realize that INTJs, we have such an imaginative life in our heads.
Oh yeah.
We're very imaginative. We have this, I mean, I have this whole other world that I can live in if I want to, mentally, obviously, and then still be able to do my daily things. But um, I think our exterior makes us so stoic and so almost Vulcan that people don't realize what's going on up here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like we're all like, I kind of think I know actually a lot of INTJs who like to write that are like author types. I think that's just because we always have such stories in our heads. Maybe.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard it said that the quietest people have the loudest minds.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Maybe because, well, I was about to say maybe because we're quiet because we're thinking about our imaginative lives, but no, that's probably not the entire reason. But um, so let's get back to like, what have your experiences been with ENTP and ENFP? Have you known any ENFPs?
Not not that I can say for certain.
Hmm.
Again, like I said, I'm really bad at typing people, but there was a girl once, whom I met through the internet. She might have been an ENFP but the only reason why I say that though was because she was kind of goofy, but she was really into me. Um, and I have no idea why. Uh, so that because of the whole stereotypical ENFP INTJ relationship. Um,
Yeah.
so generally speaking, it was if she had lived in Michigan, she was actually from Georgia. I could definitely see at times where a romantic relationship could have been started, could have been nurtured. Um, but there were times where I did want to strangle her, though. But that was before I learned more about who I was and about more so about how to control myself. I would
Mm-hmm.
definitely say I am interested in learning more about the ENFP INTJ relationship dynamic, and I'm definitely interested in sitting down with a female ENFP and seeing like what the romantic potential actually is.
I I do have experience with an ENFP guy, um, a friend relationship, and that has been really fulfilling and amazing, actually. I can't even begin to describe why it's just its own special thing. And it wasn't like I knew he was an ENFP prior or anything like that. It's just, I'm actually, as a side note, on Facebook, I don't really post much on Facebook, but I am involved in a lot of groups on Facebook, and most of them are MBTI or like gym stuff. But my favorite group is the INTJ ENFP group.
Mhm.
The dynamic between us is it's so delightful to watch it. And you just see these ENFPs like write these stories of like, feelings and emotion and sobbing, and then having the INTJs respond back, in the comments like, what's the big deal? Like just whatever about it, and yeah, and then watching these INTJs try to console, or ENFPs are always making these like posts about relationships and sex, um and then the INTJs will throw in a comment about like, "Oh, it's getting kind of hot in here," like, "Oh." um I don't know, it's a very unique dynamic, and I can see why they say that about the INTJ ENFP mix.
Mm.
I think that the description of them doesn't do them any justice. And with that said, my kid drives me nuts. There's a lot of things about him I don't understand. I don't get the way he thinks sometimes. And other times he'll be like, Mom, I feel like this. And I'm like, yeah, I totally get that. I totally understand that.
Mm.
Because there is a lot of similarities in our cognitive stacks are different, but there are some similarities in how they think and how we think. That's why we kind of mesh really well. And then I think same thing with the ENTP. I think that an ENTP and an INTJ, no matter gender, I think can really be great friends.
Hmm.
It'd be like a really great friendship.
Interesting.
Yeah. But the ENTPs are kind of have that emotionless. They're not as emotional also like INTJs are.
Hmm.
They have that same kind of thing to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So overall, though, would you say that your home life as well as your married life has been a positive experience and you enjoy it? You still love your husband, you love your kid?
Yeah, I still love my husband, I still love my kid. Yeah, I mean, we've definitely gone through some rough patches. One of the things I've had to learn is to show a lot more compassion. Not that I don't feel compassion, I just don't show it. So I need
Hmm.
to show compassion. I think sometimes I have to remind my husband that I'm not a feeler. He kind of knows about MBTI. He's been tested twice at work, I think. He knows enough about it. He even brought home a test for me because he wanted to know what was wrong with me. And then so I don't think he's really gone out of his way to figure me out. I've gone a lot more out of my way to figure him out.
Hmm.
So I do have to show him a lot more compassion. I've had to learn to live in a very messy environment. I'm someone who's very ordered and meticulous and minimal. I live in a mess all the time. And then when you throw an ENFP in there and it's just double trouble.
Hmm.
But dealing with my son's emotional meltdowns, his emotional outbursts has been very challenging to me because I don't understand that. I didn't react like that as a child.
Hmm.
I was also very self-sufficient as a child. My mother could just leave me alone for days if she wanted to. She never had to really interfere with me.
Hmm.
My husband will tell you that that's what's wrong with me, is that I got left alone a lot. But I liked it like that. I didn't want to be bothered by people when I was a kid. Whereas my son, he wants to be surrounded by people all the time, and he wants to be told what to do. He wants someone to orient him and help him do the things that he should be doing on his own.
Hmm.
It's kind of hard it's hard for me to explain because I don't understand that. I don't like someone had to tell him what instrument to play. He couldn't just pick one and be happy with it. Whereas
What?
me, I knew right away at 6 years old, I wanted to play the piano and I stuck with it. Like I decided and I stuck with it. He just doesn't know. He always wants someone else to do stuff for him or give him the ideas that he needs or to push him
Okay.
to do these things. I'm not the
Interesting.
kind of person, like I never, someone had suggested I get into personal training. And that seemed like a really great idea until I figured out that I have to be on these people all the time.
Hmm.
You have to bother them all the time. You have to be like motivating them to work out. I'm like, I don't need anybody to motivate me to work out. I'm not going to do that for someone else.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that didn't happen. But so that's what I don't understand about my son is he's not self-motivated in some things. Other things he's very self-motivated to learn. He could spend all day watching science education about outer space on YouTube. Very self-motivated to learn. I never had to teach him how to write. I didn't have to teach him how to do math. I don't have to do any of that because he learns it himself.
Hmm.
So that's kind of what's cool about them. And ENFPs are also very, very intelligent, scary intelligent, but they give off this perception that they're lazy. And I think other types will just see them as lazy and never really dig a little deeper to find out how smart they are. Probably the same with ENTPs. ENTPs are too busy arguing and debating that people forget, oh, you know, he's actually arguing his opposite views. That's pretty smart. You know what I mean? Like my husband my mother and I are the same political, we agree on politics. And so does my husband. We all have the same political views, but he'll argue with her about politics and take the other side, be the devil's advocate, and she won't know it. And she gets so mad. She's so upset. And I have to, about like half an hour into this argument they're having, I'm like, Mom, he's stirring your pot. Like, don't fall for it. You know, after a while, I guess it's not as amusing as it is in the beginning, but anyway.
Hey everyone, Brian C. Lesh here. I know this isn't probably the ending to the interview you guys were expecting or hoping for, but basically Sherry and I ran out of time, so I had to cut the ending of what was there. Additionally, there was supposed to be a third and fourth part to the interview, but due to technical difficulties, those parts don't exist. However, because Sherry was such a joy and a pleasure to speak to, and she has a lot of very interesting insight on what it's like to be an INTJ in this world, I've decided to invite her back periodically to have talks of what it's like to be an INTJ in other venues of life. So there will be more videos in the future of me talking to Sherry. Additionally, I hope that there will be other interview videos of me interviewing other MBTI types. That's not going so well right now. I am working on one with a friend of mine who's an INFP. We'll see how that turns out. But in terms of doing other interviews, I'm kind of strapped for people to interview. So if you have an interesting MBTI type that I've not yet interviewed, I've only interviewed 2. So there's 14 more to go through. And you'd like to be interviewed, feel free to contact me and we'll see what we can set up.